On today's Locked On Thunder podcast, the Oklahoma City Thunder beat down the Toronto Raptors, but the biggest story is Chet Holmgren returning to the lineup, getting the start next to Isaiah Hartenstein. Jalen Williams, really good offensive game. What did this game look like as the Thunder integrate a new but old piece?
You are Locked On Thunder, your daily Oklahoma City Thunder podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Let's get it going on the Locked On Thunder podcast, on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I am your host, media member and beat writer for Thunder on SI, Rylan Stiles. Follow me on Twitter at Rylan_Stiles. Follow the show on Twitter at LOThunderPod. Email the show, LOThunderPod@gmail.com. On today's show, we're talking Chet Holmgren's return, the Thunder mixing him in to the lineup, 22 minutes tonight, and he starts with Isaiah Hartenstein, and they're really trying to get re-familiarized with a familiar piece of this rotation, as Chet's been out since November 10th. With me today is Brandon Rahbar. Brandon Rahbar on Twitter, dailythunder.com, 1077 The Franchise, media luminary, Brandon Rahbar. Brandon, man, the energy in the arena was different tonight. I mean, what did you make of this game going from, a getaway day before you got to head to Memphis in the last game of the homestand to, okay, this is much must-watch TV, and the arena is bringing that kind of energy?
Yeah, this is a Raptors team that just, they're trading away guys. They're firmly in the capture the Cooper flag race. And so this would have been a Friday night at the Paycom. I think there would have been more empty seats than typical. But when you found out that Chet was making his return tonight, all of a sudden it was like you had to be there. And you told me that there are some media members that maybe were taking the night off tonight that changed their plans once they found out Chet was going to be there. I had to be there for opening lineups, like the starting lineups, because I knew there would be a huge ovation, and it did not disappoint. The crowd obviously incredibly excited about having Chet back. It was loud in there for his ovation. I know that when they showed him on the big screen, just during shoot around, it was loud. And when he came back in later in the game, when he checked back in, it was loud. And he had a couple of block shots, one particularly on Grady Dick, one on Scotty Barnes. Those two in particular, the crowd went nuts. They definitely went nuts when he blocked Dick and when he blocked Scotty Barnes. And they were just excited to have him back. It was fun. For a Raptors team that's tanking, this was a really, really fun night at the Paycom.
This was a fun night. I mean, he deflated Dick like visualizing your grandma. But Brandon, when you look at this game, the biggest storyline is, of course, Chet Holmgren returning. And there's a lot of moving parts about this return for Holmgren. The first thing that we entered the game with, who's he going to start with, and is he on a minute restriction? Now, when Mark was asked about this, he was asked if there was a plan on like minute restrictions and back-to-backs. Clearly, that gives Mark the ability to just say, well, there's a plan. Yes, there is a plan. Didn't want to divulge that plan. And I think that when you listen to Mark's answer, you kind of see why. They have a plan. It's not very rigid, though. So, like, it would be kind of counterintuitive for him to tell us, okay, Chet's going to play this amount of minutes, and he's never going to play back-to-back, or he is going to play back-to-back, or whatever. And that plan, which they know is rigid or is not rigid, and they know is fluctuate, changes, then it sends everyone into a tizzy. And if you just keep it kind of, murky, then no one has to panic whenever something happens, good or bad, of just looking at this. And I think that it's true that they have an idea of what they want to do. For example, this Memphis game. I think right now at 12:37, they have an idea of if they want Chet to play Saturday or not. We don't know what that idea is, but they have it. Now, when Chet steps off that plane, and you finally get to stretch out a little bit, you get to get your feeling back after being on an airplane, and he wakes up tomorrow after sleeping from his first NBA game, how he's feeling at that time can alter that plan in one way or the other. And it kind of was reaffirmed that that's the case when you look at what Mark said about Chet's return, how, if you remember, his reevaluation period was 3 to 5 weeks. He comes back before that 3 to 5 week mark in this game, surprising us all in doing so. And that's because of what Mark alluded to, of what Mark flat out said was because his body reacted in a way that they couldn't account for. Yes, it's of course a huge credit to Chet attacking the rehab, but it's also a credit to just the way his body reacted, which you can't really control no matter how hard you attack your rehab. So it's a little bit of both. So you got to see how he reacts to playing in his first game to determine how many minutes you should give him if he's going to play on a back-to-back. So I do think that while it was a murky answer, while we don't know definitively one way or the other, I think that this time it is not just Mark, keeping company secrets and acting like this stuff is the nuclear code. I think it's genuine that they don't have any way of knowing right now. But as far as his minutes tonight, he plays 22 minutes. And again, how much of that was because it's a blowout, or how much of that is because of his quote unquote minute restriction? They did get him back out there in the fourth quarter, which I found a little bit surprising, but also, just to want to get him some run in his first game back, even though the score was so lopsided. I thought Chet Holmgren looked really good tonight, all things considered. Was this the best ever Chet performance? Not even close. But when you factor in his first game back in months, and you factor in how great he looked defensively, I thought that it gave some really encouraging signs for his mobility. It gave some really encouraging signs for his confidence of challenging shots at the rim. The same way he got hurt, he was still challenging shots that way in this game, which he touched on post-game. And then offensively, there's going to be some growing pains, both because of conditioning. And Mark talked about how a lower body injury, you have to give these guys time, because Chet has accomplished his return to play. He has not accomplished his return to performance yet. And so you can't really just take this sample size and freak out or panic or whatever from this game offensively, because he's going to need some time to get his conditioning back. He's going to need some time to get his rhythm back, and going to need some time to find out how to play next to a big man, which he has not done since playing with Drew Timme. And before that, I don't think he's ever done. And past that, we know he's never done it on a consistent level. So, Brandon, I thought it was a good return. What did you think about Chet Holmgren getting back in the lineup?
Yeah, if you would have told any of us a week ago, if you would have told us 2 days ago that Chet was going to be playing tonight and that he would have 4 blocks and 2 steals and he would be a game high plus 22 in his 22 minutes. I mean, first of all, you'd be shocked that he was playing. It just kind of came out of nowhere. Nobody expected, I don't think, for him to beat the timeline, to come back on the early end of that. I thought he looked really good, quite honestly. Obviously, the defense was there. 6 stocks in 22 minutes, and the way he was moving, I thought was really, really impressive. He misses 3 months with a hip fracture that it's a particular injury that nobody in the NBA has ever had before. So to miss 3 months, jump back in, and to play the way he did, I thought was really impressive. Obviously, the offense is going to take longer. Like you said, he's got to get into rhythm. That's going to come along. We know what kind of offensive player Chet can be, and Chet is going to be. So I wouldn't worry about that at all. He didn't really, and Mark talked about it. He said he was really impressed with his maturity and the fact that he didn't assert himself and didn't want to kind of make it the Chet show. And Chet talked about that as well. And Mark talked about what a great teammate it makes him, because, after all that time, he could have come in looking for a shot, showing everybody that he still got it. He only took 5 shots in 22 minutes. He was 2 of 5. He had 4 points, but the defensive end, just seeing what kind of impact he can have alongside Hartenstein, without Hartenstein. Look, he played more fourth quarter minutes than Shea did tonight. So he played some minutes. And I thought it was cool that he started. He didn't come off the bench in his first game back. And we finally got to see what we all wanted to see all summer long, then all season long. Chet and Hartenstein playing together, and small game sample size, but so far, so good.
So far, so good. In 22 minutes and 2 seconds, Chet Holmgren had 4 points, 5 rebounds, 1 assist, 2 steals, 4 blocks, and 1 technical foul. 1 technical foul for Chet Holmgren. Very surprising to see that. He did get to start alongside Chet Holmgren. Now, Lou Dort out due to back spasms. Cason Wallace, previously we already knew was out due to a shoulder injury. So we still haven't seen what Mark's going to do when everybody's there. But he did, for the first game, play Chet alongside Hartenstein, which I thought was a big deal, because I could have seen a world, and I did talk about this on yesterday's show, where you almost would not mind seeing him play without Hartenstein to start the game, just so you can repeat the environment he's used to, make everything as comfortable as possible for Chet in his first few minutes on the court from this massive injury, an injury nobody in the history of the NBA has dealt with. But they throw him right into the fire, and he plays with a big. He actually does jump center after it looked like Hartenstein was going to do it. He went ahead and took the honors in the center circle. I thought that it was good to see them play him with Hartenstein. And also, if you watch how he substituted, they tried their best to make sure that those 22 minutes were with another center to maybe play some catch up on some time that you've missed to try to work in this new aspect of his game. But Brandon, coming up, we're going to talk about how did the Thunder use him? What did he look like next to a big on today's Locked On Thunder? But first, I want to say right now, but our good friends over at Robinhood Gold. With Robinhood Gold, you can enjoy the VIP treatment, receiving 3% IRA match on retirement contributions. The privilege of the very privileged is no longer exclusive. With Robinhood Gold, your annual IRA contributions are boosted by 3%, plus you also get 4% APY on your cash and non-retirement accounts. That's over 8 times the national savings average. The perks of the high net worth are now available for any net worth. The new gold standard is here with Robinhood Gold. To receive your 3% boost on annual IRA contributions, sign up at robinhood.com/gold. Investing involves risk. Rates subject to change. 3% match requires Robinhood Gold at $5 per month for 1 year from the first match. Must keep funds in IRA account for 5 years. Go to robinhood.com/boost. Over 8 times the national average savings amount. Interest rate claim is based on data from the FDIC as of November 18th, 2024. Robinhood Financial LLC, member SIPC. Gold membership is offered by Robinhood Gold LLC. We're back on the Locked On Thunder podcast on the Locked On Podcast Network, your teams every day. I'm Rylan Stiles, host of Locked On Thunder, and you can find me on Twitter at Rylan_Stiles, as well as reading Thunder on SI. Joining me is media luminary Brandon Rahbar at Brandon Rahbar on Twitter. You can find both of us on the OKC Dream Team as well. Brandon, they used Chet Holmgren in double big lineups almost the entire time he was on the court tonight, which is a stark difference from a year ago, his rookie season, where he only played with another big 2% of his minutes as we're qualifying J. Will as the other big. And I thought that it looked better than expected. I thought that you saw glimpses of what this could be, what this could turn into. And multiple times in a very small sample size, you saw the pin down screens from Hartenstein, allowing Chet to come up and get the ball at the elbow and work in the post and play off the catch in that way. One time it results in that dark mid-range fadeaway. One time it results with Chet getting the ball off of that Hartenstein screen at the three-point line, and Hartenstein clears out of that side of the court, empties out the court for an isolation with Chet on Jacoby Walter. If I told you that was going to happen yesterday, you would have said, well, clearly Chet scored. He didn't, but it just shows you the mismatches that this duo can create with Hartenstein's off-ball screening without even really getting into the big for big screens on the pick and roll that they can run and all that they can accomplish. And then you also saw how Chet bends the defense with SGA. And this is something that the Thunder did not take advantage of, and it's something that could have made his offensive box score louder. It's just that I think that this team needs time to see it on film and know how to read it and react to it, because there were times where Hartenstein comes up to the ball, sets a screen for Shea. That's normal. The defense is loading up on Shea and trying to pack the paint and stop him in the paint. That's normal. But what's not normal is whenever Scotty Barnes is supposed to be guarding Chet Holmgren, he has a foot inside the paint for like the first 6 possessions of this game. Whenever you see that and you get to play with it, the next time that they do that, you'll be able to whip that pass to the corner to Chet Holmgren for an open three, and you'll be able to set him up for just beautiful opportunities. On top of that, those open three looks, whenever Scotty Barnes had to come up to the ball to try to help on Shea and gap him, Chet was able to cut behind Barnes. And so those are 2 ways where the Thunder could have used Chet. It didn't happen this time on a very low sample size, and they're not going to get to that look every single time. But it's something that once you see it on film tonight, you can make those adjustments for the next time that Chet Holmgren's on the court with you with Hartenstein. So I thought that it was really encouraging. Obviously, it's going to take a feel-it-out process, and I thought that the first part of the game was a feel-it-out process. I thought it was much better after going to the bench and coming back into the game. But when you factor in this is the first time that they've really played together, and really the first time ever, because in that game in San Antonio, they didn't have Shea, I thought that the 2 big lineup really worked on both ends.
Yeah, I thought it did as well. Obviously, the defense, like, I mean, again, a dominant performance defensively for these guys. But offensively, it's fascinating because Chet pulls a big out, when he's the lone five. But now you got Hartenstein in there, and J-Dub talked about it. Chet has gravity. You've got to respect his 3-point shooting. He only shot 1 3 tonight, but I don't think that's going to be normal. We're going to see more 3-point attempts from Chet moving forward, obviously. And then J-Dub talked about how Hartenstein sets such good screens. And so now not only is it the two bigs, but the space that they create for J-Dub and Shea and how it's going to help their games as well. I think it's really, really good and big for this team that they have 30 games now to kind of play with this. The fact that Shea came back before the All-Star break, so they're going to have a handful of games before the All-Star break, then they get like a little mini training camp, before they get back to it. And so 30 games, that is a big portion of the season to play with this, to fill it out. And going into the playoffs, we didn't know when Chet was coming back. He could have come back, with 20 games left, with 15 games left, whatever it may have been. The fact that they get 30-ish games to see how these two guys, the two bigs, can play together and how that can kind of formulate this offense and inform this offense going forward. I think it's a big advantage for the Thunder that they have this much time.
Yeah, especially like you mentioned, that kind of mini training camp that you get to go through after the All-Star festivities, and that week leading into your first game back from the All-Star break is really crucial for this Thunder team to see these pictures. For example, see that those opportunities where Scotty Barnes was playing way too far off Chet, and then course correct them and get him going. And then Chet will play, obviously I would assume, if not tonight, play again before the All-Star break. I don't think I'm going on a limb there. And it's just another way to help him get back into conditioning. Then you have that whole week to help him get back into conditioning now that he's at a return to play status. You can get him closer to that return to perform. Defensively, the two big lineup I thought was killer. I mean, that's not a surprise considering how great they were on that end and how great Chet was on that end. I think the plan to have Chet as the low man for the majority of this time. And I say that because I was surprised by it in the preseason game in San Antonio. Whenever we went down there and watched Chet and Hartenstein play, where Chet was playing as the low defender and Hartenstein was on the perimeter more, you would think going into the summer, like after they made that move, it would be flipped. But it was that way in San Antonio. It's that way tonight. They trust Hartenstein on an island. He's not terrible out there. He does his job very well, and so they can keep Chet around the rim, who even coming off this hip injury was already just lethal. I mean, the 4 blocks were loud, but there were also many drive attempts that didn't even get a shot up. Like they just dribbled into the paint, saw Chet was there and kind of gnashed it and kicked the ball out. That Chet being there is just this imposing figure to really help anchor your defense. And the fact that he's anchoring what's been a historic defense without him as one of, if not their very best defender. And in a game in which you lack 2 of your top 4 defenders with Dort and Kaysen on the bench in street clothes, this was everything that you needed to see the touch points of how great this team can be.
Yeah. And the fact that Hartenstein, they trust him on the perimeter, I think it really speaks to his versatility and maybe something that we didn't expect coming into the season. But Chet, his rim protection is just another level because Hartenstein himself is a top 10 rim protector in this league. Like the stats back it up. He's a great rim protector, not just a good one, a great one. But then you see Chet, and he's just like on another level. And this is like Chet coming back, after 30 games being injured. He comes back, and like you said, not only was it the 4 blocks that were loud, so many attempts. Either he altered the attempts that turned into bad shots, or teams would just decide not to even take a paint attempt and kick it back out. And Chet is just one of those guys. Chet, Wemby, there's a few guys in the league that are just game changers when it comes to the rim protection. So yeah, the fact that Chet can play the low man, Hartenstein can defend on the perimeter, or they can switch. The versatility that these two guys bring, and then you play them with J-Dub, who's probably the most versatile defender in the league. The dude legitimately guards 1 through 5 Shea is a great defender. And then, of course, like you said, the perimeter defenders between Dort, Caruso, and Casey Wallace. I can't wait to see this team at full strength. I saw somebody on Twitter, I thought it was a great quote, said that this Thunder team is kind of like Thanos if he procrastinated a little bit, because like you keep thinking that they got like all the stones and they're about to complete it, and then Dort's out and Kaysen's out, but at some point we're going to see this team at full strength, and I can't wait to see like how all these defensive pieces fit together, because they've been historically great, but they can somehow be even better.
They can be. And this is kind of what you're seeing him in terms of, we've talked for 20 minutes now about Chet, but also you're already seeing Chet make other players better, including Jalen Williams. You saw Caruso have one of his better games tonight as a member of the Thunder on both ends, but especially on the offensive end. And SGA has made a really loud improvement that's going a little bit under the radar. We'll talk about all that coming up. But first, I want to say right now, our good friends over at Game Time, go check out Game Time today, because if you're looking for tickets to the next big event, which is Monday in the Paycom Center against New Orleans, where Chet Holmgren is back on the floor, whether it's concerts or comedy shows or sporting events, you can find the right ticket at the right price. While that can be a headache at other places, with Game Time, it's never been easier. This is how it works. The Game Time will give you the Game Time picks. And what those are is it helps you get a curated deal, the best deals curated for you. So you're not just hunting and pecking, trying to find the best deal through thousands of tickets on these little dots on a seating map. They give you the best deals right up front for you. And you can grab these super deals for prime seats, and you will not believe the value of that seat. They promise you last minute tickets, lowest prices guaranteed, and it's true. And they're so confident in that being true that if you somehow find a better deal somewhere else, which you will not, but if you do, they'll refund you 110% of that difference. Plus, your tickets are guaranteed to be delivered on time with easy cancellation policies and options if something comes up. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Go download the Game Time app, creating your account and using code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Terms and conditions apply. Again, create your account, redeem code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Download the Game Time app today. Last minute tickets, lowest prices guaranteed. What time is it? Game time. We're back on the Lockdown Thunder podcast, on the Lockdown Podcast Network, your teams every day. What a loud night from Jalen Williams, J-Dub, who had 27 points on 47% shooting, 1 for 3 from 3, 8 for 10 at the free throw line with 4 and 1s as J-Dub continues to attack downhill. 4 assists, 5 rebounds from Dub, a +9 in his 34 minutes. Brandon, what did you like from Jalen Williams?
I think it was how much he was attacking and getting to the free throw line. This tied a career high in free throw attempts. It's now the 4th time he's got it, and most of these have been recently. Like, there is a definite upwards trend as far as J-Dub getting to the line, and we've all thought that this is kind of like his next step in his trajectory to become an even more lethal offensive weapon and to become a more efficient player, and he's doing it. And the fact that he had 4 and 1s, like, not only is he getting to the line, but he's finishing these tough makes when he's being fouled. I just really like to see his aggressiveness. And I just thought that, I don't know if it was Chet's gravity opening things up or if it was just a coincidence, but Jada was attacking the rim. He was asked about it, and he wasn't sure either. He gave credit to Chet for opening up the floor and for Hartenstein's screens, but aggressive J-Dub, getting to the line J-Dub, that's a really, really nice number 2 scoring option when he's getting to the line like that.
So it's almost like me and you on this podcast talking about how Chet improves himself, the team, and especially Jalen Williams. We weren't just a bunch of whack jobs, right? We were actually kind of knowing a little bit of what we were talking about, because it did help J-Dub in this game. I thought Alex Caruso had one of his better nights as a member of the Thunder. 12 points, 6 rebounds, 4 assists, 3 steals, and a block. He went 2 for 4 from 3. He hit his open shots. He even tried an off the dribble 3, which he missed. He had nice cutting moments. He was able to float to that dunker spot, serving as a safety valve. And then in those secondary units, he was able to play some point guard a little bit, play on the ball, set his teammates up, and at the very least, be a connective playmaker. I think that Caruso is really getting comfortable in what the Thunder are asking him to do. We always talk about how unique this system is, how different it is from every other team. And then we don't afford these players enough time to get adequated to it. And I think that you're seeing him come into form in this system with Alex Caruso.
Yeah, and Caruso's defense has been there with the Thunder from the jump, like from day one. We see what a difference maker he can be. He just comes in and he causes chaos. He dives on the floor, all these deflections. He had 3 steals tonight in only 20 minutes. So the defense has been there, and the impact he has on that end. But when he's hitting shots like he is tonight, and we saw him last year, he shot over 40% from 3 with the Bulls, and they didn't give him as good of looks as this Thunder team is going to give him. And just like Isaiah Joe, he's obviously not the shooter that Joe is, but Isaiah Joe started in a slump and he got better. Caruso's been in and out of the lineup. He hasn't been able to find his rhythm. I still believe in Alex Caruso, the shooter. And you see tonight when he can hit those shots, what a huge X factor he can be, because the defense is always going to be there. He's always going to make a difference on defense. But man, when Caruso and like Cason Wallace are hitting threes, the offense gets that much better.
It does. And Isaiah Joe continues to hit his threes as well. 4 for 5 tonight from beyond the arc. They put him in some floppy action, and that is just coming off of a double screen with Shea being the low screener for Joe, who curled off of Hartenstein. Man, like that is the living proof, the living, breathing example of what we've talked about on this show before, Brandon, where last year this team was overly reliant on the drive and kick stuff, the stationary catch and shoot, drive and kick. And that, as you saw a year ago, butters your bread in the regular season, because teams are just frankly not exerting enough effort. They're not closing out hard. They're not contesting. And so whenever you are going to load up on Shea and collapse on Shea and he kicks it out, you just kind of throw your hands up and say, well, all right, they knock down their shots, and that's how you get to the low volume 3, but the high percentage 3, as the Thunder led the league in 3-point percentage, but we're nowhere near close to leading the league in volume. And then this year, they're changing those looks and floppy action and coming off DHOs and coming off pin downs, like all that stuff you can do regardless of how defenses are rotating, regardless of how their effort is in the postseason. These are very repeatable stuff that you can get Joe going on compared to just having him boxed into being a stationary catch and shoot guy. And so Joe talked about how early in the year he was uncomfortable and he was trying to get comfortable with these new opportunities, with these new shot attempts and this new shot quality of his. But now, so far through February, only 1 week, but now the last 2 months, he's had his best shooting months of his career, and it's really paying off for the Thunder.
Yeah, the Isaiah Joe slump is officially over. He is now shooting 40.6% from 3 on the season, which is wild when you consider that we're 50 games into the season and he was shooting well below his standard for most of the season. It shows how strong his shooting has been the last couple of months. The last dozen games, the last 12 games, he's shooting 51 of 85. That's 60%, 4 or 5 tonight. I know a lot of Thunder fans wanted Cam Johnson, and I understand why. But the Thunder have Cam Johnson at home, and his name is Isaiah Joe. He's a guy that, just like Cam Johnson, can bend the defense. He can be a movement shooter, and he can be an X factor in the playoffs, any particular game. A guy like Isaiah Joe catching fire can truly make a difference. Like, the Thunder can just get on a roll. Like, when they go on these runs, a lot of times Isaiah Joe is a key part of that. Because when he gets hot, when he gets rolling, it just seems like everything he throws up there is going to hit.
That's for sure. I mean, he is throwing the ball into an ocean whenever he gets rolling here, and it's helped the Thunder offense tremendously. Another thing that's helped the Thunder offense tremendously is SGA's playmaking leap, and it's really under the radar because, especially nationally, when you're not watching every single possession of Shea the way that we do, like the assisted numbers are very comparable. Like there's nothing on the box score or nothing on the basketball reference page that jumps out at you. It's like, oh, he's really improved this. But watching him, like that elite pocket pass to J. Will, the patience of like when he rose up for that 3 and then darts it in to Caruso at the dunker spot, like the patience and the ability to read a defense and truly read it, not just react to it, not just pass the ball because you have to, because you're being doubled or because you're being swarmed in the paint, but looking to create advantages for your teammates. All that stuff is really piling up for Shea, especially over these last couple of months, to where you're seeing him improve as a team guy. Not that he was ever selfish, but you're seeing him elevate the rest of this roster the same way you give credit to other superstars for making their guys better. Shea is getting to that category as well.
Yeah, I think that he realizes now how much gravity he has and how much he sucks the defense in and how nobody can guard him one-on-one. And teams are sending 2 guys at him. Teams will send 3 guys at Shea sometimes, and he's finding the open man. A lot of times he can beat 2-on-1. A lot of times he can beat 3-on-1, but he's going to make the right play. And, I know that we used to talk about like Josh Giddey's like potential assists, and like there's a lot of times, there's a few tonight, like some great reads that Shea had.
The read that he had, with Chet, with Kenrich at the slot, where he was able to just, again, have the patience of, there was a screen, they had to switch it or they had to rotate around, and he waited to the last possible second to see who's going where and then directs the ball perfectly to Kenrich, because he tried to disguise it a little bit by coming off late to switch and to send help to Shea. And he read it perfectly. He gave himself time to read it, and then the shot doesn't go in. So it's a play that realistically on like highlights or whatever is going to be lost in the ether. But it was one of his better processing moments of the game.
Yeah, exactly. And there feels like there's a handful of those, every game. And, that's how it's going to be. Like, not every guy's going to hit a shot no matter how open he is or how perfect the read was. So I get that. But, man, I do think that when you look at his body of work and his playmaking this season, it's absolutely taken another step, and it's made him that much of a better player. Because I do think that he's making his supporting cast better. And it's something he talked about. He said that was something that he needed to work on in the playoffs last year against the Mavs. He said that he felt like, he needed to put his teammates in a better position to succeed. And that was something he was going to work on this season. And I think he has.
Yeah. And to the point of how the Thunder do so much at a high to elite level that they're able to mask some of their blemishes. Like tonight, they only shot 29% from 3 and they won 121-109. And the only players who you would classify as having a good shooting night would be Isaiah Joe, 4 for 5, and then Alex Caruso, who's 2 for 4. Everybody else at most hit 1. And it was just a night where they got enough from the 3-point line to where they could use all the other stuff that they do so well to raise them to a lopsided win. And your hope is that, of course, Kaysen and Lou being out is a big detriment, because like Lou's a 40% 3-point shooter. That's just what he is for 2 seasons now. You kind of have to stop calling him a streaky shooter if he's giving you this big of a sample size to go off of. And then we know that Kaysen can get hot from 3, and we know that like once Chet's return to performance has a bow on it, the same way his return to play does, like he'll be a better 3-point shooter as well. So it's not like massive cause for concern. I think it's actually something that you point out and say, wow, like this is how good they are. They can shoot 29% against an NBA team and not only win the game, but win the game handedly whenever the opposite team, like the opponent, shot 46% from beyond the arc tonight. So I'm excited, Brandon, for this game against the Memphis Grizzlies. We won't know how exciting it is until later this afternoon, because the Thunder on a back-to-back will not have to report the injury report until roughly 1 p.m. today. And that's when we're going to find out if Chet is going to play or not. But the Grizzlies are playing everybody with the question mark of Desmond Bane. He's questionable, so we'll see if Bane plays. But if Bane is in, the Grizzlies are going to have their entire roster. It's going to be so much fun to see how these two teams match up with one another. Brandon, we might be able to get you back. Can I convince you to get back Saturday night, boogieing on down to Lockdown Thunder?
Let's do this. Let's back to back. Let's do this, because this is the number 1 team in the West versus the number 2 team in the West. If the Thunder go out and beat the Grizzlies at their place on the second night of a back-to-back, if we get to see like Chet and Hartenstein versus Jaren Jackson Jr. and Zach Edey, we got Shea, we got Ja. This should be a really fun game to talk about. So yeah, count me in.
Yeah, I mean, that's the biggest game of the weekend, right? I mean, there's no other big game happening this weekend, is there? I mean, Saturday night on Beale Street is all I can think of games that are going to go on. And perhaps we'll see who's on Dream Team duty tomorrow, but perhaps a 4-pod day from yours truly with Lockdown Thunder, with Locked On NBA. So, Brandon, I really appreciate you hopping back on tomorrow. Until then, be good and be good to one another.